are doing well this morning. I had some questions. I was watching a TikTok last night, and so basically what happened is that the creator was doing a live on YouTube. Somebody alerted her that Tony Mathis was live on TikTok, and so she went over and began streaming his broadcast on TikTok. And because I don't really know why he wouldn't just go ahead and make a YouTube account. I mean, he's clearly wanting to be a social media creator. So I don't know why he wouldn't do that. Instead, he chooses this platform where he's not, the items are not being saved and accessible to other people, right? Unless I don't do TikTok. I'm not a TikToker, so I don't know an awful lot about it. But anyway, his channel is there. It has no content on it, but he goes live in the middle of the night, and he's extraordinary in terms of bombast, saying things that you would never hear him say on Web Sleuths or Pascal Show. Like when he appears on YouTube, he's really measured and careful with his words. But when you watch him on TikTok in the middle of the night, it's like he's trying to pick up women. It was a little bit, it was really embarrassing. It wasn't a little bit embarrassing. It was really embarrassing. He doesn't seem to have any interest at all in the females, certain females. But then if there's like some of the females that are very, very young or beautiful, or then he's super interested. And I don't fault him for that. I mean, I think it's human nature, and I don't see anything wrong with it. What I find to be incredibly amazing about it is that the man is claiming that he's a PR guy for the father of this missing boy, right? And the whole point of what he was saying was that Seth is terrible. I mean, he came right out and said this, that Seth is terrible on social media, that he comes off real bad, and that he wants Seth to stay away from the camera. He wants to do all the talking related to the search for Sebastian. And yet he's going live in the middle of the night and doing these crazy broadcasts and saying some of the most incredible, unbelievable things. So the last one, last night or night before last, he said that Sebastian, number one, we had heard this before, but he said that they did verify Sebastian was in fact communicating with Katie's mom, who is a registered sex offender for life. She served quite a long time in prison for her crimes, and so it is troubling that Sebastian was in contact with his maternal grandmother. That I heard somebody say, well, is he not allowed to? Like, is he not supposed to do that? And no, I don't think, she's probably, he's not at 15, 16 years old, they probably don't have that restriction. I could be wrong about that, but regardless of the legality of it, you would just sort of think, I can't get that mosquito, you would just kind of think that the mom would be careful, right, to keep her children away from this woman. So that was the first thing they said that I thought, coming from him, given the history, he was one of the ones that said that Seth had put out information that had no business being out in the public sphere, and that all the YouTubers should quit talking about these extraneous details that don't have anything to do with the investigation. And yet he's putting out information that Sebastian was in contact with a registered sex offender. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, aren't you the guy that was supposed to come in and solve this, get all this under control? All you did was to shut Seth up so that you could do all of that. And now you've got your own social media channel. Now you're taking money. What is happening here? So I find it absolutely underhanded. I am. And where are the virtue signalers? Where are the virtue signalers? Are they screaming and yelling about how horrible this guy is? That he's, making money on social media, talking about Sebastian, that he's got him a little TikTok channel. Like, no, you're not hearing, you don't hear a word. As long as it's the people that they determine they like, then you can make as much money as you want to. You can do what you want to do. They love Gray Hughes. Gray Hughes talks a big game. Oh, yes, we only put out facts. In this channel, we only discuss the facts. Okay, I respect that. But you're the one that put out the information that Caleb Harris was going to meet up with a man for sex on the beach. What? You don't know that. That came out of left field. My jaw hit the ground and I thought, okay, this is not typical of Gray Hughes. So what is this about? So my point here is Gray Hughes has the right to talk about whatever he wants to, as long as it's within terms of service and it's not illegal. And I support him to do that. That's his right. He can do his channel any way he wants to. Anyone can, as long as you're within terms of service and you're following the law. It's not a problem. My complaint is against those who have decided what we can talk about, what we cannot talk about, who should be allowed to talk on social media, and who should not be allowed to talk on social media. I think it is absolutely shocking that this group of YouTube creators has just made themselves the morality police like you have in Saudi Arabia. If you don't go to church, they come around with a cane and beat you and put you in the back end of a truck and then carry you to the mosque. We have our own, the true crime community now has their own self-ascribed morality police. And instead of beating you over the head with a cane, what they do is they make videos about you and they use your name. Sometimes they go real life and they contact bosses, or I've heard of a situation where they called the person's adult daughter. Y'all need to stop. This is weird. This has gotten so weird. And the very people that you guys white knight for and you hold up to be, the pictures of what you think is proper and correct, they're doing exactly what you're complaining about. Exactly. So anyway, this TikTok that was done by Tony Mathis, incidentally, Tony Mathis was a singer. I find it's interesting. Is that really his name in real life, or is that the name that he chose to be his handle on social media? But regardless, there was a comment. So one of the things he said was about that Sebastian was in contact, that he was actually texting the maternal grandmother, Katie's mother, the day before he went missing. You know what? I don't know what to say. If you think that is an unimportant detail, then we have a different thought pattern. The day before, less than 24 hours before that kid goes missing, he is texting, we are floating away on mosquitoes in this truck. Sorry about that. We are less than 24 hours before he goes missing, he's in contact with a registered sex offender. Okay, that matters. That's important. And in the beginning, another point that he made on his broadcast was that in the beginning, the police said that it was a missing persons case, that the kid, maybe a runaway perhaps, and they said that it was a missing person, and within 48 hours, 2 days, within 48 hours, the theory of the case had changed 360 degrees, according to the police. That they thought that it was a kidnapping, or not a kidnapping, a runaway, and then within 24 hours, they had a completely opposite belief system. Now, the only thing that could be would be a kidnapping, perhaps, or someone harmed him, that he didn't leave on his own, free will, right? So, so that was another point that he made. And then, let me think about what the other, let's see, I don't remember what the third point was that he had learned, new information that he had learned. But it wasn't as big a deal as the contact with the sex offender, and the fact that the cops had completely changed the way that, the theory of their case, that had been completely dramatically changed. So, I thought that was incredibly interesting. Another issue that I think is uncomfortable for me is this one. So we all saw the scratches on Christopher Proudfoot's arms, right? And I don't know why. I just had not, I don't know, I just didn't realize, I suppose. But it came to my realization, it was 8 days. Those scratches, when we saw them during that interview, that was 8 days after Sebastian went missing. And when you realize that, then you look at those scratches differently. You look at those scratches and say, okay, how bad did they look before there was a week of healing? And somebody Christopher Proudfoot's age, he did a lot of healing in 8 days, right? So one of the things he said when they were talking about the scratches, and he was being sarcastic, obviously, as he was addressing the issue. But one of the things about the scratches is he said, well, I play with the dogs, right? He plays with the dogs. They scratch and bite, and, like dogs and cats do when you're playing with them. It's not a big deal. It's pretty normal America, right? The problem is that Mr. Proudfoot said that the last time that he had been home at the house with Katie and Sebastian was February. So when the hell did the dogs have time to hurt him? Is what he's saying to us that he got the news that Sebastian is missing, he makes a flying trip home, 3 hours and 37 minutes. That sounds like part of a game plan. And then once he got home and the house was full of police, right? Everybody was looking for Sebastian. He decided to have a game of ball throwing with the dogs, or he decided to have a little dog wrestling and play a little bit. That is not real. That's not human nature. When he got back to that house, he would have been completely discombobulated and worried about Sebastian and helping Katie as she was breaking down and trying to answer questions for the investigators. I mean, it would have been the dogs would not have been even a thought in his mind. It's crazy. It's so crazy. So my predictions, I've just you can tell that we're driving down the road, so I don't have any notes or anything with me. But the point of wanting to do this is this. I really do believe that if we are patient, I do think there's going to be an arrest. I do. I think if you were a prosecutor, and you were looking at this case, what would all of this information mean to you? There's no explaining away the fact that he claimed that the dog scratched his arms, but he also claimed he hadn't been at the house since February. You don't explain that away. And if he tries to change the story to, oh, well, I was in the woods, I was working, or whatever, like Barry Mathis said, right? If he tries to do that, then you have to ask him, okay, but why did you say the dogs did it? You claim the dogs did it until we said, hey, the calendar doesn't work. You weren't home since February. So it could not have been the dogs. So I do think there'll be, I think, just like we have right now, where we've got the Daybell case going on, and wow, wasn't that a crazy situation. I felt so bad for Crusha and her family. Just unbelievable. How many times has there been document problems? Anyway, I'm not going to get sidetracked. But we had this thing going on with the Chad Daybell case and the Karen Reed case, and we had all these big cases happening at one time, right? We went for a long time without a really extraordinary court case, and then they all hit at the same time. And I kind of think that's probably going to happen again next year. I think we're going to end up seeing an arrest in the disappearance of Sebastian Rogers. I also think that we're going to end up seeing a trial with Barry Morphew. And Kohberger has been kicked down the can to 2025. So, yeah, I think we just need to sit easy. I think it's going to happen. I don't know how. If the information is true about the police changing their theory in a 48-hour period of time, changing it completely, then they know what they're doing. We just have to trust it, right? So, kind of same situation with Barry. There's no explaining away the BAM. You don't explain that away. It's just facts. It is what it is, and there's no, oh, well, maybe she accidentally put the BAM in her morning coffee. It's just not. There's no alternate. There's absolutely no way that Suzanne would have come across BAM other than her husband, right? Like, there's no, even if Iris Eaton comes up with something like, the elusive kidnappers who dragged her off of her bicycle, drove her up to her house, and they found the BAM and injected her with BAM, and then they loaded her up in the car and drove away before throwing the bicycle in the ditch. But why? And why would she tell them where her house was? Why would she do that? No, it's not real. There were only 3 people that had access to the house. It was Barry and his 2 daughters. No one else had access. Well, maybe his girlfriend did, but didn't she clean? Maybe she cleaned for Suzanne. But yeah, there'll be a trial. I have no, unless he decides to be smart and do a plea deal, But I think the same thing with Sebastian. It'll just be I think there'll be an arrest, but what I don't know is how far will they go? Will it just be Katie, or will they implicate other people? And here's going over to the Chad Daybell case. Going over to the Chad Daybell case, there are some interesting facts about that as well, that I now feel certain that there will be additional charges. I don't think they're going to stop with Chad. I think there'll be more arrests. I think once they get Chad behind bars, I think they're going to go for more people. And the reason I say that is because they only gave immunity to one person, and that was Dilemma. And what about the 3%er? Hey, Melanie, what about the 3%er? Which one in your little social club, Felony Melanie, was the person that gave you guys a 3% chance of getting caught? Was it you? Was it David? Perhaps David Warwick? Which one of you? Maybe it was Jason Mao. Somebody really made Lori upset because she and Chad were told they only had a 3% chance of getting caught. That was a hell of a phone call right there, because it absolutely implicated other people. Absolutely. So I think we'll get some arrests there. That may just be wishful thinking, but that was really something. They had multiple documents problems with this prosecution team, which I find to be quite extraordinary, because they've had 5-6 attorneys working on the case. Remember when the debacle happened related to Crescia, Kay, Larry, where they were not going to be allowed to attend the trial because someone didn't turn in the documents that would have named them family and next of kin victims. Remember that? You remember? That was them, the prosecutors, dropping the ball. That was an oopsie. They had discovery problems. That was also an oopsie, which is, I think most cases I've seen, there's been at least a little bit of that, right? So it's not such a bad thing. But then they completely charged the wrong charge. They ended up having to rewrite the charging documents, which was really that was a shocking display of a judge doing legal gymnastics. And here's the thing that I think about. We all make mistakes, every single one of us. You've never been able to go through your work life and not screwed up. It happens, right? But when you screw up, when you get caught making a mistake, don't you double down and get really, really careful? Don't you start working super hard not to, to be called out again? Not this prosecution team. They're just it. Now the only other alternative I can see from they just didn't pay attention to what they were doing. The other possibility was that document slipped in? Was it intentionally changed out, and that they changed the one charging paragraph? Remember, Tylee was killed on the 8th and 9th, right? So that date that they have on the bad document, the date they have saying that JJ was killed on the 8th or 9th, that was actually the date of Tylee's death. So it makes me think that was like a working copy. And so they thought, okay, well, we know they were at Yellowstone and this is when they died. And that was the working copy. But then it remained the 8th or 9th for Tylee because they never found anything else, any of the proof of life. But later, after this one document was made that had both of them dying on the 8th and 9th, that then they ended up with the picture that showed JJ in his red pajamas. So it was obviously an old document that they corrected the charge on, but it was the old date before they found proof of life later on in the month. So that's the other part of it. Is it just sheer and complete incompetence? Or is someone intentionally trying to get the death penalty taken off the table? And I wonder, I'm going to tell you, I hadn't heard anybody say this, but I'm just going to say it. What if Judge Boyce comes back on Monday and as a to rehabilitate this, he takes the death penalty off the table. How are you gonna feel about that? So we'll see what ends up happening. It wasn't a clerical error. It's not. They're really pushing the envelope to try to get this done. So we'll see how it ends up turning out. But anyway, we're on the road a little bit today, this morning. Be back a little bit later on, and I'll do a live later on today. But I hope you guys have a good Saturday. And I can't see the chat, so I apologize. But there's someone's message got deleted. Who's acting ugly? I don't know. I can't read it. Okay. All right. So, you guys have a wonderful Saturday. And if you haven't looked to see at all the wind damage from the night before last in Houston, you should go on Twitter and look it up. It's pretty shocking how in just minutes everything changes. It still wasn't as bad as some of those tornadoes up in Tennessee and Oklahoma. You know, they have some massive tornadoes all the time, but it was weird for Houston. It was a weird event for Houston. So, all right, everybody. I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll probably, do a live. I don't know. We should be back sometime around noon. So I'll go live later on this afternoon. Okay. All right. You guys have a wonderful time. Talk to you later. Bye.